Hi there. It is Women's History Month, so I am going to feature another First Lady. And this time it is Bess Truman, Harry Truman's wife. This doll is lovely. I love the gown. Look at the lace, flowers. I don't think it's a replica of her inaugural gown, though. Look at the painted on shoes. These are porcelain. All these dolls have the same unusual hand. I don't know why, but she has pretty molded hair of the style of the period and the pretty blue eyes. I think she's a lovely doll. Let's see if I can show you the box she came in. Yeah, there we go. First Lady Collection. All the dolls have the very same body shape. I featured Mrs. Coolidge, or yeah, it was Mrs. Coolidge. I don't know if I've shown you any of the others, but anyway, this is the Bess Truman doll, and I think the detail is beautiful, and I'm glad I have these. I think I have 4 or 5 of this particular kind of collection of First Lady dolls. So I will appreciate it if you stay tuned for a brief biography of the lovely Bess Truman. Hold on. Here we go with a brief biography of Bess Truman. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. Okay. She was born February 13th, 1885 in Independence, Missouri. She met Harry when she was 5 years old and Harry was 6. They met in Sunday school, and word is that he fell in love with her from the moment he saw her. And it appears he never looked at another woman. This was his woman, and he knew it from the moment he met her. I think that's beautiful. He called her the boss, but anyway. Unfortunately, her mother did not approve of Harry. I don't know why, but she didn't. But anyway, eventually Harry wore her down, and she married him in 1919. They were married for 53 years until Harry's death. Apparently, they're one of the closest knit families in Washington, D.C. But I think a lot of it had to do with how private she was. So, and this next part I'm kind of reluctant to tell you because she was so private, but it's part of who she was. So, when she was 18 years old, her father killed himself. And she went into protection mode. From what I gather from the rest of her life, she was protecting the privacy of the family, protecting her mother. And that's to be admired, isn't it? Okay, she had 2 miscarriages before she gave birth to Margaret when Bess was 39 years old. When Harry was in the Senate, she worked on the Senate staff. She was a paid worker, which apparently upset everybody, but as Harry Truman said in most Harry Truman fashion, she did the work, she got paid. What's the problem? She was not keen on Washington, D.C. She just wasn't impressed, from what I gather. But she stayed and did her First Lady duties. Of course, she became First Lady after Harry was just vice president, I believe, 4 months before Franklin Roosevelt died. And then suddenly she's the First Lady with all the duties of a First Lady. Problem being, she followed Eleanor Roosevelt, she wrote columns. She was just constantly active, and that just wasn't Bess Truman's way. But she fulfilled her duties. Apparently, there's a social season from December to Lent, and she stayed in Washington and did what she was supposed to. But she liked to go home a lot to Missouri. And I used to wonder about that, but it appears that she would go home to take care of her mother and even Harry's mother. So she was doing something important. Just because Washington didn't see it that way doesn't mean it wasn't. So, but I know her mother lived with them for quite a while, and she even her mother she passed away. She passed away in the White House. So then when Harry ran for president on his own behalf, she campaigned. They did train whistle stop tours, and she did what she could to get her husband elected. They had the first integrated inaugural ball. Let's see. She had she had the teas and luncheons that a first lady's supposed to, but everything was off the record. So, again, private. And she had a right to be private. In fact, Harry, she burned all her letters to Harry, and he caught her doing it. He said, "What are you doing? Think of history." And she said, "I am." So she's one of the, let's see, there were 3 first ladies. Elizabeth Monroe, oh no. Let's see. I had that written down. Come on. Okay. Martha Washington and Florence Harding burned their letters as well. So, but anyway, allegedly her favorite first lady was Elizabeth Monroe, who had the same attitude. I wasn't elected, you were. So she wasn't impressed with DC either. And in fact, James Monroe burned all his letters to Elizabeth. I don't know why. While they were in the White House, it was literally falling down. Margaret's piano leg came through the ceiling. So they had to get out. The plaster was falling. It was bad. So they moved to the Blair House. While they were in the Blair House, somebody attempted to assassinate Harry. So that must have been scary. But she was a penny pincher. And she didn't want any part of decorating the White House because she said, "It's not my house." So she understood it was the people's house, so she had decorators do it. And then they wanted to just gut the whole thing, but Harry Truman would not let them, he said, because of his love of history. So they had to keep all the outer part of the White House intact, and they just redid the insides, made it safe, and I think he added a sub-basement, and then he added the Truman balcony. But he paid for it out of the household allowance that the first family gets, not through Congress. So he added the Truman balcony, which many presidents are grateful for that. Let's see. She was a big sports fan. Kansas City Royals, that was her team. And she passed away October 18th, 1982, of heart failure at the age of 97. There are a lot of good books about the Trumans. She burned her letters to Harry, but Harry did not. He preserved his letters to her, and there's a book called Dear Bess, which it's wonderful to read. You get the whole feeling of their loving relationship. And then there's a book I loved called The True Story of Harry Truman's Excellent Adventure, Great American Road Trip. After the presidency, Harry and Bess got in a convertible and drove from Missouri to the East Coast and back. Just the two of them, I think. I don't know that there was any security. But anyway, it's quite a wonderful book written by Matthew Algeo, Algeo. And right now I'm reading a book by Clifton Truman Daniel, their grandson. Of course, Margaret Truman she's written a book about, I don't know if it's about her mom or about both of them. So I'm going to try to find that. And of course, Margaret Truman is a great mystery writer. But her son, Clifton Truman Daniel, It's a great interview. If you ever see him interviewed, I'm sure there's on YouTube. He's funny and he's smart and he knows history. Anyway, he's written a book about growing up with my grandfather. I've just started reading it, so, but I'm sure it'll be good because based on his interviews. Okay, here's her quote. I could see why Harry Truman loved this woman, because she's just no nonsense about this stuff. I'm not impressed with all this stuff. Her quote. Now, about the ghosts, I'm sure that, about the White House ghosts, I'm sure they're there, and I'm not half so alarmed at meeting up with them as I am having to meet the live nuts I have to see every day. I like this lady. So that is Bess Truman. Margaret, by the way, Margaret was really good at all the social stuff, so it had worked out. They knew their strengths and what to do. Anyway, that is my brief biography, or maybe not so brief, of Bess Truman. And I hope you like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and let me know if you want to hear about more First Ladies. I did this one because Marna from Dolls Rescued said she really liked it when I do First Ladies. So, and she's from Missouri, so that's where Marna lives. So there you go. Until next time, toodles.